A dire new warning from the CEO of America's largest bank, who is sounding the alarm on tariffs and their impact on the U.S. economy. We're talking about J.P. Morgan's Jamie Dimon saying that Trump's tariffs are extreme and that he believes the full impact are still yet to be felt.
People feel pretty good because you haven't seen an effect of tariffs. The market came down 10%, it's back up 10%. I think that's an extraordinary amount of complacency. I don't think we could predict the outcome, and I think the chance of inflation going up and stagflation is a little bit higher than other people think.
We're also seeing new fallout from President Trump's global trade war. Today, Subaru following Walmart's lead, announcing that it will hike prices to offset increased costs. In the meantime, Home Depot says it plans to keep most of its prices stable, but it says the tariffs may increase prices on select items and force the company to eliminate some product lines entirely. With us now is Scott Lincicome, the Vice President of General Economics at the Cato Institute. All right, Scott, so what do you first make of Jamie Dimon's warning here? Have projections about the effects of inflation and stagflation been too conservative?
Yeah, I think they have. Even granting that, United States economy is huge and that trade is a relatively small part of the economy, the reality is that you're imposing hundreds of billions of dollars in new taxes on American manufacturers and retailers like Walmart and Home Depot. And as those costs get absorbed by the companies or passed on to consumers, it's inevitably going to be higher prices, fewer products, or lower earnings, and the market's going to have to reflect that at some point. So far, companies have built up these inventories, they have a lot of runway, but that runway is going to run out at some point.
And obviously, the objective of Trump's with his tariffs is supposed to be to rebalance trade. Right. So there's this question of what is that going to look like long term? And you have Dimon pointing out that even these low level 10% tariffs are enough that they're prompting trading partners of America to respond by then cutting deals with other countries. What is the effect long term of allies turning elsewhere like that?
Right. I mean, the effects are a fewfold. For American exporters, it's the most obvious. You're going to see less opportunity to sell in those markets and do business in those markets because your competitors that are now benefiting from these trade agreements that don't involve the U.S., well, your competitors are going to have better trade terms, more access, easier operations. So the other things, though, are that look, about half of everything we import into the United States are inputs used in manufacturing. So even a 10% tax on those inputs makes our companies less competitive. And also, of course, it means slower growth and higher prices. And all of that just doesn't mean, economic Armageddon, but it just means we're a little poorer and a little less competitive overall.
That doesn't sound great, right? That's not obviously the aim here. Let's talk about what we're seeing from Home Depot and Subaru. Home Depot saying, although it is planning to keep most of its prices stable, like I mentioned there, it's going to get rid of some things it would expect. Some products will disappear. Subaru says they are raising prices. How big of a deal is that?
Well, we can start with Subaru because this is an inevitable part of the tariffs effect because, around half of a Subaru Outback, for example, is imported materials. And even though it's made in the United States, when you raise taxes on those imported materials, at some point, you're going to need to raise prices. And we're seeing Subaru bow to that economic reality, just as Ford and others have done previously. But with Home Depot, this is one of the hidden costs of tariffs. We talk a lot about higher prices, but sometimes it just means products won't simply exist in the United States anymore. And that's especially true for products on the lower end that have lower profit margins or more price sensitive consumers. In that case, well, the shelf just won't have the product anymore. And it seems that Home Depot is acknowledging that unfortunate reality.
Can you think of an example? It doesn't have to be a Home Depot example. It could be at any retailer, something that people depend on that's going to fall into that hole.
Yeah, it's really hard to say, of course, because there's so many variables. But I think you can actually go back to automobiles, where we've already seen a few automakers talk about low-end imported vehicles that just don't make sense with a new 25% tariff. If you're charging $20,000 for a car, and then you suddenly increase that by $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, you're just not going to have a market for it. And so I think that's one of the most obvious areas where we're going to see that limited variety.
Yeah, there may be a market, but there won't be the supply, right? You won't be able to purchase that cheap car that maybe you really need. Scott, great to have you. Thank you so much for being with us.
Home Depot says that it plans to, quote, generally maintain its current pricing, announcing that along with its quarterly earnings today, which is a different approach than other retailers like mega retailer Walmart and others, which have said that they will have to raise prices on their products in order to manage the costs of Trump's trade war. Last week, President Trump went after Walmart for that decision and announcement, demanding Walmart reverse course and, quote, eat the tariffs and not charge valued customers anything. I'll be watching, he wrote. His press secretary said this then yesterday.
The reality is, as the president has always maintained, Chinese producers will be absorbing the cost of these tariffs.
But small business owners are already feeling the impact of these tariffs. We know that. And one of those small business owners is Beth Benike. She's the CEO of Busy Baby out of Minnesota. Her company designs and manufactures baby products. Last month, she was on with us and talked about how the trade war was essentially killing her business, choking it off. That Trump's tariffs felt like a, quote, nail in the coffin for her business. Beth Benike is back with us right now. Beth, it's good to see you. 1 month has gone by and many changes in the reality of what you're facing, I'm sure. We do know, since we last spoke, that when it comes to China, tariffs went from 145% on all goods coming in from there now to 30%. What does that now new reality mean for you?
I mean, for me, it went from not being able to ship my products at all to at least getting the stuff that was trapped in China to the US. So we are shipping that product. We did a GoFundMe to help raise some money to cover. It's still a $48,000 tariff, a $48,000 expense that came out of nowhere. And I don't know why this president continues to say China is absorbing that. I have to pay that when it gets here.
One thing that really stuck with me from our last conversation, I've talked about it since, was the impact of the uncertainty on what the rate is going to be today versus tomorrow, and how it had paralyzed you. You couldn't even make a decision for your business because you didn't know what it was going to look like tomorrow. And the Treasury Secretary said Sunday that uncertainty, that is a strategy. Let me play this.
If we were to give too much certainty to the other countries, then they would play us in the negotiations. I am confident that at the ends of these negotiations, both the retailers, the American people, and the American workers will be better off.
Do you see it that way?
No, not at all. And I'm not sure who he's talking about. For me, you know, we are already supposed to be in production of our Q4 products. If we want to get them produced and get them here, supply chain has already been broken because of this 145-day segment of this saga, because everybody stopped producing, everybody stopped shipping. So now that it's come down to a more manageable tariff, everybody's rushing to get on a boat, rushing to get it back into production. And now we're having to have delays at the port and in the factories to get going on production. But even with that, I cannot plan what's going to happen after the 90 days. How do I plan what my future is going to be for my small business? The only hope we have as small businesses is a bill that's going to the floor of the Senate, hopefully this week, the Small Business Liberation Act, that will at least exempt SBA, American small businesses, from paying these tariffs. Meanwhile, Lenovo, a Chinese computer brand, sells $15 billion a year in the US. They don't have to pay a single tariff. None of this makes sense to me.
Still not making sense, even a month after we spoke, and it's still, you're going to pay, as you said, you are going to pay the price of this tariff or your customer. There's no other way to handle it. Beth, thank you for coming on again. Please come back. It's really important to hear your voice in this. Thank you.